Well, the third and final estimate of the economy shows that the economy is shrinking by an annualized rate of nearly 3%. So now the heat is on to turn that around and get America growing again. Tom Donahue is with me. He is the president and CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And Tom, it's wonderful to have you on the program.
It's great to be back.
Were you surprised at a 2.9% contraction print on the economy last week?
Everybody was surprised.
It was a shocker.
It was a shocker, but you have to look at it in the context of what we would describe as some of the causes and what we see going on in this quarter, which is more hiring than we had a year ago, some improvement in exports, and a little better feel in spite of what's being done to business day in and day out.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think most people were expecting a contraction because of the weather. We know we had a horrible weather period in the first quarter, but 2.9% I think is indicative that it's more than the weather.
Well, and you can put a lot of it on the fact that companies were not aggregating inventory, which they normally do in the first quarter. You put those two things together, you still have a hole left, but it's not as big.
Now, what about business today? You're speaking with CEOs all the time. Why are they sitting on $2 trillion in cash and not putting that money to work?
Well, you wonder about a lot of things. If we were sitting in the executive suite, we're a global company, let's say. What's happening around the world? Challenges in the Mideast, the challenges in Europe, the challenges around the world have everybody being very careful and holding their cash. What's happening with all the regulation of the finance business, the financing of business? You do see more pressure on the banks. We still have a third of the Dodd-Frank regulations to do. Of course I'm going to hold on to my cash. And you do see big questions about the XM Bank, questions about immigration because we need the people, questions about the Highway Trust Fund, which could put a lot of people out of business. I've got to tell you, if I were running a big company or a medium-sized company, I'd be sitting on my cash.
Why wouldn't you? You don't know what health care is going to cost you. Obamacare has been very pressurous for them, as well as the EPA.
We're a good team. I got the first half, you got the second half. Those are all the issues we're worrying about.
Yeah, all right. Let me ask you about this last 2 weeks, though, as it relates to the Supreme Court. Because if you're looking at some of these onerous regulations, you got some suggestions this week that maybe it won't be as bad. Tell us what happened this week.
Well, the best example of that is we have always been able to go to court on the issues of the pollution questions in EPA. But when you got to the questions of global warming or carbon, one court decision suggested the EPA had the power. John Podesta, my friend, went out and said the Congress should mind their own business now. We're going to do this. The court ruled last week, no, 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 no. First of all, you can be sued. Second of all, you can't use this information to broaden the regulations beyond what the law said. And third of all, and very, very important, it said you can't put all of this on small companies. I think we're in a much better place. We've had the same issue on a decision on the financial issues. Can you sue back when there are broad class action suits? Can you go in as an individual company and say, no, no, not me, prove it?
Yeah.
And so the courts are beginning to say they're going to make very sure that the government's not doing the wrong thing. And then the best one was the whole question of could the president, when the Congress really was in session, appoint those people to the National Labor Relations Board, and could they do 400 rules? And guess what? The court said no, 9-0. Things are getting better.
Well, the Constitution says you have to, the Congress makes the law.
Oh, and the Congress
passes law, not the president.
And I'm waiting for the Congress to stand up on its hind legs and say, wait a minute, the Constitution says that. And but the Congress is partly guilty because they've given away their authority. They've given away their authority on entitlements. They're giving away their authority on the whole environment. They have got to take it back.
Let me ask you about going into the midterms, because I feel like companies today are fasting. In other words, they're not spending any money because they feel like we're not going to spend all of these monies for all of the reasons you just explained so eloquently. But going into the midterms, if the GOP does take the Senate, do you think we're going to see a whole new free flow of cash where companies say, okay, maybe it's not going to be as onerous as it was with the GOP running both houses, and we'll start spending again?
That would give people some comfort that there wouldn't be another major increase in regulation, but you'd have to ask a couple other questions. What's going on in the global scene where people are very nervous, and by the way, they have a lot of reason to be, and the whole question about taxes, we're not going to get to a tax bill for a long time, but there's one fundamental issue in it. If you ever could fix it, it would help. We're the only major nation in the world that is double taxed on everything we do around the world. If we had a single tax, we paid it there or we paid it here, you'd see a lot more money flowing.
We will be on that repatriation story for the next couple of years for sure. CEOs across the board talk to us about that all the time. Tom, it's wonderful having you on the program.
It's great to be here.
Thank
see you
you
again
so
soon.
much. We'll see you soon. Tom Donahue joining us from the Chamber. House Speaker John Boehner announcing plans to sue the president over executive overreach. We will talk with a constitutional attorney on where those chips may fall as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Future. Stay with us.